I'm Mr. Black, this is Beyond Creepy, and in this video I'm going to be discussing telepathy cases. In Fortean literature, you will find countless cases in which seemingly non-human entities attempt to pass themselves off as everything from military officials to FBI agents and even police officers. Witnesses seem to accept what they say, and they often comply without question. In a well-known case from Canada, farmer Joe Borda claims that he encountered 3 strange men on his property one day after a UFO was sighted, a UFO that only he had seen and that he never reported. Borda confronted them, but rather than question why they were there, the men insisted that Borda leave, and he complied, as if under some kind of mind control. I know of at least one major case from Quebec in which a man and a woman claimed they were pulled over by some strange men dressed in police uniforms. Everything about these men, from their police car to their outdated handheld phones, was odd, though this didn't stop the couple from complying. This was followed by a period of missing time, and one of the witnesses recalling being taken out of their vehicle and into a craft and being examined by hideous-looking beings. This account was reenacted for the Canadian television series Missing Link and can be found with a quick Google search. There is another case from Massachusetts in which 2 brothers claim they encountered an odd man dressed in a police uniform following a sighting of a UFO. The incident occurred in 1978. A man named Wes, no last name was provided, and his brother were driving around in their van when, out one of the windows, Wes noticed a weird-looking object hovering in the night sky. It wasn't a typical-looking flying saucer. It kind of looked like it had wings that were arched. It was all lit up underneath, and it looked like there was some kind of a boom, like maybe they were working on it or something. Wes told his brother of what he saw and demanded that he turn the van around and go back. Wes recalled that they drove around a corner which led onto a roadway that went straight across an old marsh area. There were no obstructions, so he knew that they would have a clear view of the craft. As they pulled up and turned off the engine, Wes noticed that the spot where he had observed the UFO was now dark. He assumed that it must have left sometime while they were trying to get parked. As Wes and his brother scanned the sky for any sign of the object, they were surprised when a man dressed in a police uniform walked up to the side of their van and began speaking to them. Given that they were on a stretch of road surrounded by old marsh and swampland, and it was nighttime, the fact that this man just appeared, out of nowhere, seemed odd. "What are you guys doing? Looking at the moon?" the officer asked. Wes was caught off guard by his comment, as it was overcast and there was no moon that night. Then he said something, a poem about the moon. I don't know where that came from. And then he walked away. And then I looked out the back window of the van, and there was no police car back there. No cop. He was just gone. Wes found the whole situation to be a little too strange for his liking. What are the odds that mere seconds after they sighted a weird object in the sky, they would be approached by a strange man who seemed to come out of nowhere, and then seemed to vanish as if into thin air? Over the years, Wes has come to believe that the police officer was actually one of the beings from the craft, and he had spoken to them in an effort to gauge how much they had seen. I have to wonder if Wes and his brother experienced any missing time during this encounter. They just didn't realize it. Wes did not indicate as such, though, so I have to assume nothing else transpired. Wes believed that the officer was trying to gauge what they had seen, and if one believes that these beings can telepathically connect to people or read minds, I have to wonder if the officer, or whatever it was indeed scanning their minds during their brief encounter to see how much they had seen. There are numerous cases in which cryptids are said to communicate telepathically with witnesses. In my previous video, I discussed a case from Alton, Illinois, in which a woman claims she engaged in a two-way telepathic communication with a frightening gargoyle-like creature. A California man returning home one night claims he encountered a strange entity, one that connected with him mentally, and made a rather interesting request. El Cajon, California, August 1969. A man was driving home at around 7 p.m. His route took him up a steep hill overlooking a golf course area. He was traveling east near his mobile home park. As he negotiated the paved road and following the lazy turn to the left at the top of the hill, a creature strode up the steep hillside on his right, and without breaking stride, looked directly at the witness. He seemed to make a bizarre request, which the witness heard clearly in his mind. "Don't hurt I," it said. With that, the witness eased off his accelerator and began to slow down. The creature crossed the road and proceeded up a cut bank on the witness's left. At no point did the creature break stride or exhibit any difficulty managing the steep terrain, especially going up the man-made and much steeper cut. According to the witness, this creature was bright blue, a very intense sky blue color. It was clothed in a neat, double-breasted, tight-fitting or tailored suit with matching pants and a flat-brimmed hat. The exposed skin was exactly the same color as the clothing, sky blue. He could see no wrinkles or folds in the outfit as the creature walked in front of him. Although human in size and shape, its eyes were almond-shaped and its mouth was quite tiny. At no point did the witness feel any fear, only wonderment. 2 days later, the witness returned to the area where he had his sighting. He parked and examined the spot where the creature had emerged from. The terrain was steep and loaded with trees and shrubs. The witness noted that it would be difficult for an experienced hiker to navigate this, yet this creature had no difficulty climbing it at all. It almost seems as though this being was surprised by the appearance of the witness. He signaled for him via his mind to essentially slow down and not run him over. I have to assume that the being was inspecting the area, possibly collecting samples, as is reported in so many other cases, and the vehicle he or it arrived in was parked off in the forest somewhere, obscured from the witness. I also have to wonder what might have happened had the witness elected to stop his car and followed this blue-skinned being up the steep hill. The prospect of beings reading people's minds or communicating requests via mindspeak is fascinating. For a man in Florida, his telepathic communication with a pair of UFOs one Sunday morning would leave him asking questions many years later. A witness named Jim, no last name was provided, recalled waking up one morning in early June 2015. His alarm was set for 11 a.m., but since it was Sunday, he decided that he wanted to get an extra hour of sleep and reset it for an hour later. Within 10 seconds of his head hitting the pillow, he claims he heard a loud voice saying, "Go outside." Unsure of what was going on, he rose from his bed and made his way towards the front door of his home. As he stepped outside, he caught sight of two objects moving slowly across the sky to the north. They were chrome-plated objects about the size of minivans, about 6 feet apart. They stopped about 200 feet away, treetop level, and I can see the tree is reflected in them, and the sky and the couple of clouds that were out there. And there was waves emanating off of the objects, like they were vibrating, like they were giving off heat, like you would see a mirage in the desert. As he stood watching, Jim claims that something absolutely extraordinary happened. All of a sudden, I started getting all this information in my head. We care about you. We're watching you. There is rebirth, reincarnation, resurrection. Don't worry. Everything is going to be all right. At that moment, Jim felt that he should at least attempt to film them or get a picture. He had a camera on the counter just inside the door. But when he turned to go back inside and retrieve it, he noticed that the objects began to move off. When I turned back, they started floating away the same speed they were coming in, and when they got to maybe a mile or so away to the north, they zipped off to the west at like 1,000 miles an hour and just disappeared. Jim got the distinct impression that the objects were going to give other people the same message that he had received. The real kicker was that there were symbols on each one of the craft. One of them I remembered as plain as day. Within seconds of them disappearing, I forgot what the other symbol was, and it bugged me for months. I actually contacted some friends of mine to see if they knew somebody who was a hypnotist, so I could regain that memory of that other symbol. Within time, the memory of the other symbol actually came back to him on his own. The symbol I remembered was the symbol of a Christmas tree on one of the objects. The one I didn't remember until months later, without going through hypnosis, it just came to me one day, was a cross. I'm not religious. I was raised Catholic. I haven't gone to church in years. I'm not religious, you know. I guess I'm kind of spiritual, but I thought, why would they give me that kind of message? Unlike many instances in which witnesses report dark and apocalyptic images during telepathic communications with UFOs, the beings in this encounter seem to be sharing a message of hope, a message that we on Earth are being watched and possibly protected, and that life is a cycle that continues long after we've taken our last breath on this plane. Also interesting is the spiritual component of this case. The witness claims he saw a cross, which represents death, and a Christmas tree, which represents birth. I have to wonder why he believed that the cross message was specifically for him, and why his memory of it eluded him for so long.